Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, good.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having us, guys. The team at Swyftx are really excited to be here tonight talking to you all. Does anyone know what Swyftx is, what we do?
Cryptocurrency exchange.
Yes. Very spot on. So we are a digital cryptocurrency exchange, and tonight we're going to have, hey guys, welcome. We're going to have a few Swyftx team members talking to you all. So tonight, first off, myself, Danielle, I lead the talent acquisition team at Swyftx and look after all of our recruitment. So I'm just going to give you all a quick rundown about life at Swyftx. After that, we've got Brian, who is one of our software engineers, and he is talking about observability at Swyftx. We have Jake, who is one of our product managers, and he's going to talk to you all about career pathways. So software development isn't just about coding. And then we've got Andrew, who's one of our senior security engineers, and he's going to talk to you about Async. So hot right now. Awesome. So Swyftx, we have been around since about 2019. A lot of that growth, though, has really happened over the past 2 years. So to give you guys an idea of the growth, about the start of last year, I think we had 20 team members in the business. The year before that, for most of that year, we had about 10. As of this week, we're sitting at 250 team members, and we're looking to probably double that this year. We have teams in Brisbane, so our headquarters are in Brisbane and Milton. We also have a team in Sydney and also London as well, which is really exciting. So London is pretty much a lot of customer support, engineering as well, and then a few other kind of security teams and compliance. So really, really exciting times. We have a lot of internship opportunities coming up as well. I know there's a few familiar faces. So we are doing a winter boot camp. So we have finished the recruitment process for that, and that's kind of like a 2-week intensive boot camp at Swyftx. But we are also going to start interviewing soon and putting out applications for the summer internship. So that's kind of your standard 12-week internship. We're going to do it across a lot of different departments. We'll be taking people who are interested in software engineer, security, I think is going to take a few, and a few other departments as well. So if it's not that engineering pathway you're looking at, we can definitely have a chat and see if we have opportunities in other areas. All the fun stuff about Swyftx. So we're your typical kind of fintech startup. Very similar to your large ones overseas. We have fully stocked kitchen. I think everyone puts on about 5 kilograms when they join Swyftx. Every snack you can imagine. There's ice cream, there's pizza, there's tendies. We have an in-house barista who makes your coffees every morning for you. We are about to expand to another level in the building. So we're actually going to get a cafeteria in there that will also have an in-house chef. So lots of great benefits. You're always very well fed. We do, you guys don't know that, that's still confidential. Look, so many other perks. I think my favorite one is probably the sports physio. So we have a sports physio come in 2 days a week. So really good when you've been sitting at the computer and your neck's feeling a bit tight. We're all about that kind of like mental health and wellness too. So we are a very high performing company. But in saying that, then we have so many great things from like mental health first aiders. We do yoga, meditation, and lots of different other courses. Learning and development. So that's a massive one for us. Everyone in our business, I guess, is at different stages of their career and their knowledge. So we love lots of, I guess, internal training. So at Swyftx, we do a ton of lunch and learns. They're my favorite. Pretty much anyone in the business that wants to talk about a topic can hold that. It's all catered, lots of food, and it's just so amazing to kind of see that knowledge sharing going on as well. We do paid courses. I know Jake's been at a 3-day course about design, which has been awesome. We do AWS certifications, so any certifications you need, any courses you want to do, you pretty much put your hand up, and we're very fortunate that we can get everyone to do those courses. Innovation time. Does anyone know what innovation time is in a business? No? So the way that our team works is they work in 3-week sprints. So the guys will probably talk to you a little bit more about that. But at the end of your sprint, if you kind of successfully complete all of your work, you get innovation time. And what that is you can literally work on any project that you're excited about, that you think could be like a cool new idea that Swyftx could do. It's really great. People come up with ideas and then other people kind of put their hand up and say they want to jump on it. We've already had one developer, Bei Wang, so he came up with a really cool concept in innovation time. I think he worked on it for how many days? He worked on it for 2 whole days, and then the company went, Bei, that is amazing, we love it, and now that's actually going to go into production, and we're going to put it on the app as well. So innovation time is probably one of our favorite perks we have at Swyftx. And just all of the events that we do. I don't know if you guys follow us on LinkedIn, but we did Star Wars week the other week. So once again, all the food you can imagine. We had 7-layer dip, we had hot dogs, everything there. We did Pride Week, and we also do a lot of reward and recognition. At Swyftx, we think it is really important. Like I said, we have so many people working really hard, doing amazing things, and we really want to, reward them and talk about how great it is. So we do end of month awards that are based off of our values, and we always have an end of month employee as well. So everything's happening. It's a great workplace. At the end of the presentation tonight, we'll give you guys some time to ask questions, and then afterwards we'll hang around for a bit. So please feel free to come up and chat to us as well, and find out anything you'd like to know. And I am going to hand over to Brian.
So, welcome to our Swyftx talk. I'm really glad that at least 2 of you showed up. It would have been great if 20 billion did, but it is what it is. So I'm going to tell you about observability at Swyftx, what it is, why we implemented it, and why it's super good. So, a bit about me. My name is Brian. I've been a full stack engineer for a few years now. I wrote the internal library for observability, and I head up the guild of observability. And a guild is kind of like a developer group of people who care about a certain thing or whatever, and they want to advance the understanding of that topic at the company and drive standards and all that. I used to be part of UCS. I won the hackathon in the past, first place, baby. It is what it is. And in League of Legends, I got Masters. That's pretty good. Masters in teamfight tactics, and I'm pretty mean on Fortnite. If y'all ever want to hit up some no builds, we can do some Fortnite. But anyways, on to the topic at hand. So we had a problem, solved now, but problem was, here's an example of a log in our system. I hope that doesn't breach any security things, but some amount of maneuver withdrawal failed. What else can we infer from this individual log? Realistically, the time and not much else. So logs in our application often did not store contextual information. Debugging logs with no contextual information is hard and slow. And retroactively updating all the logs would be too time consuming. So we want to mediate this problem and see how we can add some contextual information to all of our logs without involving dozens of hours of dev time. So first, I'll explain to you what observability is. And it's basically the ability for you to understand and describe your application state based on a few outputs. So as part of observability, we have 3 pillars that make up the topic. One is tracing, which is tracking user requests end-to-end across microservice architectures. Logging, which is gathering information about an application's behavior through text that gets printed after the command line. And metrics, which is low-level application and infrastructure data, memory, requests per second, CPU usage, stuff like that. So I'll go into details on these 3 things now. So distributed tracing is tracking the flow of applications, of the flow of data built on microservice architecture. So the idea is you want to follow the course of a request or transaction as it travels through the application that is being monitored. And usually this is done by attaching some sort of ID that can help you identify everything that happens in your system end to end as a result of an event. You want to gather information about application behavior as you trace it end to end. And what this does, enables pinpointing of bottlenecks, bugs, and other issues. So once you start having an application that operates at scale, you definitely want tracing in it so you know what's happening and you can figure out issues a lot faster than them. Logging, recording events in your system as they happen. So you want to capture events, behaviors, and critical paths of your application, and you want to answer the questions of when did this happen, where did it happen, who did it, was it a user, was it a service, what happened and why. You want to collect all of this info about your application over time, such that we can analyze trends and key data points. So if your application got no logging, then you're in a tough place. And metrics, measuring application turnarounds and performance over time. So you want to measure data pertaining to historical and current state of the system, things like CPU usage, requests per second, latency, all that. And so we can alert and notify you when we figure out that the system is under some really abnormal circumstances that it shouldn't otherwise be exposed to. So the problem that we were solving last year was we wanted to add distributed tracing to our application. So suppose that we perform a complex operation in our API. We have multiple steps with multiple info logs. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to keep track of the log's order and context? Additionally, the technical solution should avoid heavy refactors of the app. So why didn't we have distributed tracing last year? Well, at Swyftx, everything is built on JavaScript, full stack JavaScript, so we got Node backend and JavaScript frontend. And Node is a single threaded language. That means that we can't really benefit from handling requests per thread with things like C# and Java. Those web servers can do that. And when you handle a request per thread, you can easily assign some IDs to it and have that follow through end to end. But in Node, we have one thread. So if we had an ID on our thread, we'd have the same thing for every request, and that wouldn't really work. So what was our solution? We saw that there was a really good framework being built on of OpenTelemetry, and then we wanted to investigate, hey, is this what we should be doing? So I'll kind of just step you through our technical investigation, which is figuring out what the best way to implement distributed tracing was. Originally, we looked at async hooks. Async hooks is a module that's native to Node that provides an API to keep track of asynchronous resources. So things like promise chains, callbacks, things that happen asynchronously. And if you know a bit of JavaScript, you'll know how important it is to keep track of your asynchronous programming and the flow of your program. And what async hooks offered was async local storage, which was a class to create state within callbacks and promise chains. It's very similar to thread local storage in other languages. So here's a walkthrough of how you might want to implement tracing using async hooks. So you set up your async local storage, and it makes an async container that kind of keeps track of everything in the path of its execution. And yes, you want to edit your logging function to get an ID. And populate your local storage to the top level. So top level means entry point to your application. So places where you might want to start a trace is like right at your Express endpoint. This is just an example. Ideally, you have middleware that handles this. But here you'll see we have 3 log invocations. And the really cool thing is all these logs are going to have the same ID attached to them. And the idea is you build up your internal framework with async hooks such that you can keep track of where you are in your async local storage container. And every time you log, you would kind of persist that same ID throughout your whole application. So end to end, you get some tracing going on because of this unique ID. So what are the pros and cons of the native Node approach? So it was a pretty lightweight solution for low-level function tracing. Like you could go pretty low level with this. It's not just about requests. You could go as far as the methods you're calling and everything in your stack frame. You can store more data than just correlation IDs. We could add attributes and other things, so that's good. So the cons were it didn't really address the complexities of inter-process distributed tracing. And that's when you have multiple microservices and you want to kind of propagate a trace between them. You'd have to like write that all on your own. There were no duration statistics available. You're going to have to implement that on your own as well. It's not easily exportable to observability platforms. You have to make that by yourself. And it tightly couples tracing logic to your logger. And also async hooks is an experimental node feature, so that API could change after under us pretty quickly. Good thing we had OpenTelemetry, which was the other thing that we were accounting for. And basically, it's a set of standardized APIs that make collecting telemetry data and sending it to observability platforms pretty easy. And it can kind of auto-instrument and monitor a lot of popular libraries and frameworks in Node. So it would kind of just take care of all that. So when we were thinking about whether we should use OpenTelemetry, we wanted to know that it was actually being supported and used by other people. And luckily for us, it had a lot of support, even though when we were looking at it, they just released our 1.0 version. But after doing a bit of research and seeing who was behind it, gave us a bit of confidence to go forward with it as our solution. So the pros are lots. It basically handles a lot of the things that you would want to do and expect out of a tracing system. It handled inter-process communication and propagation. There were APIs for that. It was developed for lots of languages, not just Node. So if you ever wanted to have a microservice team that uses Golang or Java, we could just import the OpenTelemetry library for that language. Offers duration metrics, which is really good. We want to understand how long everything takes. Can easily export to observability backend. So if you've ever worked with something like New Relic, Splunk, or Datadog, you can get our data there pretty easily. And it follows a tracing standard that is kind of very present in the industry. The cons were it was quite new, so not too much, not even that many Stack Overflow questions. Logging isn't fully included, so you're going to have to add your own implementation. That's not really a bad thing. And fully automatic tracing is not possible. You're going to have to put in some manual work in more complex areas of your application. And then what happened? We made a proof of concept, and we were like, all right, OpenTelemetry does everything we wanted to do. And then what happened next? So observability is Swyftx. We use Datadog as our observability platform, enabling log querying, visualizations, metrics, and dashboarding without a G. We created an internal shared library for use between all of our different teams and apps. Has a trace logger and helpers that facilitate tracing. We'll be adding its own metrics component soon. Currently, the way we handle application metrics is through the Datadog agent. So we put the agent onto our service host. So that can be, like a pod, Kubernetes pod, or an EC2 instance. And it'll sit there in the background and collect information about your application and stream it to Datadog. And basically, all new microservices must be built with observability in mind. To understand what exactly is happening in our system. We're servicing hundreds of thousands of customers each month. And when things go bad, we want to know quickly, we want to know why, we want to know how it happened. And I think that's why we went on this observability endeavor. So how does it work? I did a similar presentation internally, and I could, just show off the code and be like, this is what's happening in our code base. Here's our app running. But I can't do any of that for you guys. So we could just kind of look at some screenshots. So I'll go to the key concepts of distributed tracing and OpenTelemetry. These are pretty brutal definitions, so I'll include a more simplified version of things. So a distributed trace is a set of events triggered as a result of a single logical operation consolidated across various components of an application. So in simpler terms, if you have an application and it's built up of 10 microservices, a trace would be end-to-end everything that happened as a result of one event. Like you bought a Bitcoin or whatever, then we would be able to know, all right, you pressed the buy Bitcoin button, and we know everything that happened as a result, and we can track it with one ID. And if we search that one ID, we're going to get every log related to it. A span represents an operation in a transaction. Spans build and continue traces. So in simpler terms, if you buy that Buy Bitcoin button, a span would represent all the different sections of things that were occurring in different parts of the app. Here is a nice image that might make it a bit easier for you to understand. So imagine this root span is the entire duration of an event that happened in a system, and these different bars, these different rectangles represent different events happening as a result of that and how long they took. And this stuff is really good for kind of just understanding what happened in your application at a bird's eye view. And the visualizations make it really easy to see, all right, we spend a lot of time with our SQL queries, or we have to wait for this third-party API. So this is one benefit of having visualized in a time series format. Context. So all of OpenTelemetry's cross-cutting concerns, such as traces, metrics, share an underlying context mechanism for storing state and accessing data across the lifespan of a distributed transaction. So basically, we have this one context object, and it's like a God container. It kind of enables all the tracing, and you pass this object around, you perform operations on it, and that's how we kind of are able to get our one unified ID across the entire system. Don't need to know too much about it. If you are programming the actual tracing, you got to get familiar with it, but that's no stress. And new logger and log format. New logger has been created to enable tracing in mind. So here's some dummy data that I made today. Yes. So how do we bring observability to our main app without heavy refactoring? So the idea is if you had 10,000 log invocations, you wouldn't want to update all of them to add an ID or timestamp or whatever. So we avoided all that by just swapping out the internals of a logger. And I guess that just goes to show the importance of making sure that your components in an app are loosely coupled and that you can change the implementation on something and trust that as long as it follows the spec or interface, it's still going to work everywhere. So if I could show you our app and our code, I'd show you this end-to-end, but I can't. So how does tracing work? So a request hits one of our endpoints, and when you hit that endpoint, our app will spin up a new OpenTelemetry context and execute all the code that follows after in the context. This is essentially starting a new trace. Because the code executed in this context, whenever we log, we're going to have that ID. So we can easily query what happened as a result of an event. And for any critical path code, we create spans. They'll also be created when you go from one microservice to another. In the case that you're continuing a trace from another service, we can consume a generated trace header to propagate it to our service. So you generate a header and you consume it, and that's how we kind of pass all this information around between different microservices. The result is, let's say this is the order service, and it wants to talk to balances. It's going to spin up a span, and as part of the request between these two services, it's going to propagate by a header that'll pass through the context object in a way, and we can logically see that these two services have talked to each other and that they're connected in some way, shape, or form. And in a really complex microservice world, we have services A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. We can see that from one request from a front-end client or whatever, this is what happens. And this is pretty powerful data. And let's say something explodes in service F, we can see everything that preceded up to it and be like, all right, well, we built the wrong sort of data model with service A. Of course, that's not a realistic situation, but it's something that we can figure out pretty easily with trace IDs. So outcomes, has observability made a difference? Yes, I think so. I think it's made a very positive difference. Almost all logs contain contextual data to help us trace the flow of a request. Pinpointing and triaging issues has become much faster for developers due to contextual log search. And Datadog's alerting and metrics dashboards allow us to correct the problems quicker and be effective on-call developers. So here's some developer testimonies. People have worked with tracing that's come in. Connor's a very happy lad. It's helped them out in numerous ways. Noah thinks that tracing is also pretty dope. And this next person was a bit less helpful. And here's my testimony. It's quite awesome. So that's Observability Swyftx. Sorry, I couldn't be a bit more technical. I'd love to show you the code. Like, it's some pretty intelligent stuff, but it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I'll take a question or two or three. Can be about anything Swyftx related. If audience any questions. Yeah, you go.
Did you come up with the idea for observability, or was that the existing project?
So at the end of last year, we kind of identified a bunch of pain points that as an engineering team we wanted to improve on as we're scaling out to more users, and observability was a pretty big initiative. I didn't come up with it. We all came up with it. I barely came up with it all, really. But, you know, I took charge, you know what I'm saying? But yes, think about it.
Yeah, is observability something that is feasible to add into like a personal project? Anything like some personal projects are lucky to get readme, you know, like yeah.
Could you do it? Yes. Yeah. Would it be overkill? I think potentially it could, depending on the scale of your project. But like for personal projects, like do anything that you're interested in. Like if you want to learn about observability and be like, all right, I have 3 microservices in my project for whatever reason. You want to trace that end to end and do it, and then give me a resume and you know, write the history.
Yeah. Always on the grind, eh?
Always on the grind.
Yeah.
So how do you put so you have your microservices, right?
Yeah.
You're running a Datadog agent.
Yeah.
So these are like external services, right? Or are they internal microservices?
These are internal microservices.
So you've got a Datadog instance agent, then it's gonna
Sort of, you put an agent or a daemon, and those are just things that chill out in the background. They can do anything really. And in our case, they just report back on how our EC2 instance is feeling or whatever.
So they're going to stream it back to your sort of central
to Datadog or
central service that's going to gather.
no, we just go straight to Datadog.
Okay.
Although you have the right idea. We are doing something like that for the actual trace data.
Yeah.
We put it to an open telemetry collector, and then that goes straight to Datadog. And that the reason you might want to put something into a centralized kind of collector area is so you can do some processing of your data. You can scale it out.
Mm-hmm.
If you had 1,000 microservices, you want to point that to maybe like 10 instances at least of the thing that forwards it through to whatever thing. But yeah, that's more or less how it works. Nothing too crazy.
Very another one. Say you're working on some feature and you might have written some code that like you don't know what it's going to do exactly. Does Datadog or anything or OpenTelemetry have some sort of testing feature? Because I feel like you don't want to have some feature that you've just started working on today. You don't want to have that like in your logs traced. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that is if you were releasing a feature to customers, you would want to be very sure about what it does or how it works or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess in the case of like disaster mitigation, if you have a pretty big feature or something that you don't want to touch many users, you can kind of put it behind a release flag or whatever.
Okay.
It's kind of just like, is the feature enabled, true or false? You can switch it up pretty easily.
Okay.
And you can even do cool things like you route it to maybe 5% of all users, 5% of all traffic. I guess in that case, yeah, if it blows up, we'll probably log it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks for listening. I hope I didn't spill anything too sensitive or confidential. I'm gonna pass it on to
Hi all, my name's Andrew Wheatley. I'm a senior security engineer in the application security space. I like to think of myself as a translator for security to the developers and a way to sort of make their lives a lot easier. So I'm going to talk about application security because it is a hot topic right now, and everyone in security is kind of realizing that it was a neglected space. Everyone wanted to be a hacker, and now they're starting to realize that there's this new movement and everyone wants to kind of join in. So who am I? How did I get here? So look, I started off in the service tier while I was at uni. I worked on call centers in the government agencies. So I was answering phone calls, deleting Outlook mailboxes so people could rejoin and all that kind of stuff. And then I slowly moved into the tier 2 space where I was answering sort of employee calls about the applications within the agencies. So I was logging bugs, I was getting bugs, triaging them, logging them, and then I was sending them off to the right area for them to be fixed. Fortunately, unfortunately, I've been a .NET developer for 15 years. I've been there from before it was version 1. I was taught it at uni, and I actually do love it. It's a great language. It's getting even better by the day. And I still do all my personal projects that require some type of object-oriented structure. I go to .NET straight off. So after I sort of was working in those government agencies, I moved on, and I was asked to join a small boutique in Brisbane called Alcorn Group, and I joined that group to write security tools. So if there was a pen tester that was trying to hack something and they needed a tool to automatically do certain things, so for instance, one of those tools I was first help wrote was sort of a multi-region attacker, so we could, so relating to what Brian was talking about logging, we were trying to spam their logs and to confuse their tracing so they couldn't see the attacker coming in. So that's the kind of fun stuff that really got me involved in security, because I was able to help using my developer skills to help the hackers, and it was really fun. And then I took some time off to be a dad, but then I was convinced by the head of security to come and join Swyftx. It took him a while. He approached me, I think, September last year, and I joined in January. I didn't trust it, just like the crypto. All right, so is anyone here sort of familiar with application security? Have you heard of the term? Cool. All right, so application security, you're there to find and also to help fix, but also the most important thing there, you're there to support the developers and the product managers while they go and develop a product through its lifestyle. So it's from its conception right to its death. So we've got to make sure that when we decommission services, we're actually doing it in a secure way as well. All right, so as I sort of said, what I like to do is I like to empower the engineers, giving them the skills in order to do their job securely is a very good job satisfaction, especially if you're not the blocker, you're the helper. Another more sort of executive way of looking at application security is there's this movement called shift left, and it's moving security from the end of the pipeline back to the front. And effectively what it's doing is it's saving someone lots of money and people lots of time. So I sort of touched on that. The traditional way that security has always been done is right at the end. It's a check mark. Everyone sort of goes, oh, we'll hand it off to that security team. Hopefully they'll go check it off and everything will be right. Like, fingers crossed. That's usually happens. Look, and the end result is you're rushed. You miss a lot of things. And as I sort of said, you're the bad person at the end of the day. You're the one that's going to be blocking this project that's been going on for like 2 or 3 years and saying, hey, there's a bug there. and you can't go live because it's a big vulnerability. And it's sort of like a big responsibility on your shoulders. The future, this new movement of shift left, it's about bringing it to the forefront. So when we got Jake here, who's talking about designing the products and getting everyone in the right room together, it's important to get that security person in there to talk at the conceptual level. So and that way it's like, we call it threat modeling. So you're thinking about how can I actually break the solution? You're not just trying to solve it. And people are really good at solving problems, especially in our space of engineering, but they're not really good at wanting to break their own problems. And that's why, it's really good to get different pairs of eyes on things. And like I'm always going to say, we enable developers. So we're setting up their tools. We're making sure that when they're developing, it's in a secure space. So it's not just checking code and doing code audits. It's like, adding logging to like GitHub and making sure that GitHub is actually a safe space so people aren't taking code away or bringing code in or sharing code out, that kind of stuff. All right, so kind of wanted to like touch on what you can do right now. So you guys are at uni, you're doing projects, you're kind of starting to get used to running lots of code, and you're probably going to start moving on internships or maybe into your first job. And some of the things I like to sort of say to the juniors is start thinking about what you're doing before you do it. Don't just jump in there and start hacking away. It's kind of good for scripting and to get some things out of your head, but really think about the problem that you're trying to solve. And then once you do that, step away from it and how can you break it? It's very, very similar to testing in that space, but it's putting on that black hacker hat and saying, how can I really break this code? Really try hard not to sweat then. The other thing is inputs. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this during your studies, but inputs are the most vulnerable area that you can have in your code. So Brian, how you were showing the router for Express, those entry points, that is the most vulnerable point in your code that you could ever write. And that's because it's where you take a request, it comes in, and it's going to be the very first bit of thing that like touches your code. So make sure if you're accepting a request, you validate it. You validate it well, and you don't just think about negative testing. Think about positive testing. Positive testing is actually really, really valuable. So an example of positive testing would be if I was getting a whole bunch of asset codes in, I know what those asset codes are. So test to know what those, don't just assume and do a regex and go, oh, it's going to be this alpha with these digits. It's going to be this actual value and do a proper regex against the actual values that should be coming. So that's a little bit some tidbits that I can give you. Now, I want to talk to you guys about a day in the life of an application security engineer. Look, I've got a family, so most of my morning is locked up, making sure the vomit's cleaned up, the dog's not licking my child's face. But then when I drop my daughter off at school, I sort of start thinking about the day. And the first sort of thing I do when I get to my computer is I open up my reporting. So we've got scanners that are constantly looking at code. So looking at what Brian's doing, and when he checks it in, it's scanning and it's bringing up alerts if he's actually written some bad code. So what I do is I come in, I look at those scans and those results, and then I see if we're actually vulnerable. If we're vulnerable, then I start logging vulnerabilities and start giving Brian more work because he wrote that code. And then I sort of move into my code auditing kind of area.
Is that in-house auditing or?
So there's lots of good services out there. They call them a SAST service. So GitHub has, if you've got an open source project on GitHub, enable this today. It's called GitHub Advanced Security, and it'll allow you to scan things as you check them in. So when you do a git commit, it'll start scanning. You can even do it on your local machine as well. So that's really handy to do. Like, even if you've got like a uni project right now, I would put and enable that on. So when you scan it, it's going to do code quality checks against your thing, and you'll be writing pretty ace code actually at the end of the day. So there's in-house scanning, and there's also called dynamic scanning. So let's just say you've got an Express app, you log it in, it gets built, it gets shared. We've got to have scanners that come in and basically fuzz the hell out of it and test to see if your input validations are correct and all that kind of thing. So yeah. We are developing in-house tools, but again, as I sort of said, application security is kind of new. So it is, we're writing applications to test our own application is kind of like where we're getting at.
Can you briefly mention what fuzzing is? Because it's a security sort of word.
It's funny. Everyone used to tell me about fuzzing, and when I was working for a whole bunch of pen testers, and I was a dev, and I was like, "What's this fuzzing?" It's just testing using a whole bunch of random stuff. So if you wanted to fuzz an endpoint that accepts a single digit, you would go start at 0 or negative, whatever it is, and you just go pump it with like, you know, A, AAA, and you just go through a whole bunch of things. There's also word lists. So there's like, you can go and find a whole bunch of random words, big string. Damo has one, and it's called...
Also, one of my colleagues has the entire book of Moby Dick in a text file that you somehow copy and paste into requests just to see how they handle the whole book.
Oh, yeah, so it's like that kind of stuff. That's what fuzzing is. It's really not scary.
100%
I'd like to see that in the wild, please. So you like my presentation and you're wondering how you can follow my footsteps. Look, find your strength that you love in your engineering space. Always, if you like, you know, database design, if you like product design, if you like back-end design, if you like, you know, as simple as observability like Brian does, go into that field and own it. Make it your strength and go get some industry experience. Some people in the pen testing space, you can go and probably jump in straight away, but I think with application security, you need to be an engineer to understand what they're going through. You can't be that person that comes in and tells them what to do. You've had to go through it a little bit. So the other thing is there's lots of things like hackthebox.com, those kind of things. Go in there and learn how to write crap code. If you learn how to write crap code, that's sort of how you, that's how you learn. That's how you get into it. It's how I got into security. One of my applications I wrote got hacked. So I remember that morning I walked in, the security person was sitting there, like, Wheatley, you know that application you just wrote over the last 6 months, it's just been hacked right now. So we had user data leaked. That's how I learned the hard way. You don't have to learn the hard way, go and now learn the easy way. But yeah, that day I still burned in the back of my head. And look, the other thing is that I wasn't prepared for is when you do want to take that leap into security, you are going to go backwards. So you're going to be the junior again, and that's okay, because you've learned you learned the industry, you've gone through that, and you're getting your dividends back by having that knowledge of how to do things. So you're going to be able to go and be able to actually go forward and jump over those people that skipped out that industry experience. OWASP top 10. Go and learn it. I remember when I got hacked that time, the security person, he went and got me the OWASP top 10 book, these books, and put it in front of me, and it became my Bible for ages. I don't know why I said it then, David. And the other thing is, the security community is really cool. They're really friendly. I was very hesitant in trying to find the security community in Brisbane because I thought it was a whole bunch of hackers that would be trying to steal my personal identity when I walked through the door. It's not like that. Everyone's friendly. Everyone wants to teach. Everyone wants more people in this space because there's not enough people. We want a variety of people as well. We don't just want, like, you know, the people that are really technically minded. We want those people that are in the design and solution and architectural space as well, because that's really important. That threat modeling I was talking to you about, probably the most key aspect of designing a product. All right, so where to find more AppSec things? As I said, the OWASP Top 10, Hack the Box. The other one that I didn't mention, but I highly recommend, because this is how I kind of learn, is Portswigger. Just go Portswigger Labs, and they've got online labs. You basically start them up, and it's the main tool that every pen tester uses. Meetups, there's Brisbane OWASP. It used to be full of people, but COVID hit, and now it's just starting to get up. And this is a shameless plug. I'm starting up a AppSec meetup as well. It's pretty new, and we'll be starting that up around June. And conferences. So there's two main conferences that I recommend you go through in Brisbane, and it's CrikeyCon. That's the fun one. You walk in, they've got this table full of like locks, and there's someone there to teach you how to unlock it. There's people there, you know, they call them hackathons. So you walk in and capture the flag and stuff. That's really cool. There's like, it's not really like it, but when I walked in the first time, I was like, oh, it's just like, you know, Mr. Robot when he's sitting there, like all the things going on. But they are actually kind of fun like that. It's really cool. That's how you would learn how to do most of your pen testing as well. Sit next to someone and say, how did you do this? And they'll probably teach you how to do the entire freaking thing. And look, if you want to reach out, just my Twitter has there. Just DM me. I'm happy to show you what to do, how to get into application security a bit more. But yeah, and that's my talk. On to Jake, because with questions at the end.
Oh, wait, no, yes, questions now?
No questions at the end.
Okay. Cool. Might sit down. I'm going to see the camera. So,
Yeah,
otherwise, I'm going to walk and you walk way too far, and then you're going to get a spinny. It's going to be. Is this right?
you can see it preview.
Oh, hi. I'm very low down.
Yeah, quite later.
I'm actually very short. Hi. I'm Jake, and I'm here to convince you that you shouldn't be a developer. So, congrats. No, I'm a product manager at Swyftx, and I guess what I wanted to talk with you guys about is a little bit around some maybe here. I can sit on
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're right.
Ready? Look at this one.
And I was just changing it.
It's so orange.
Yeah, it is very orange.
Cool. Is that better?
Yeah, it's good. That's
Pretty
good.
good. Fantastic. Awesome. So yeah, I'm a product manager. I'm here to talk to you, I guess, around not that you shouldn't go into development or software engineering, but I guess trying to just broaden your kind of horizons and I guess your outlook of what is out there when you do go into businesses and what other roles kind of sit around you. So I'm a product manager, so I'm going to take a stab at what that actually means. Does anyone know what a product manager is? Take a guess.
Understand them as someone that's a bit of an interface between higher up people and developers, and they sort of steer the ship a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The way I think about it is, if developers' job is to build the thing right, my job is to make sure you guys build the right thing. So all the stuff I do is around doing things like market research, talking with customers, looking at what the competitors are doing, and then bringing those different features and stuff into, I guess, the pipeline of work that we're doing, and then feeding that through to you guys as developers and engineers, and going, okay, this is the feature we want to go with, this is the vision we're setting for the company, here's what the product should look like, and then kind of working with developers every day to kind of go about implementing that. So it's kind of that that lead in that funnel of work coming into engineers. So I haven't always been a product manager. A little bit about me. My wife and my two kids. They are what I do, similar to Andrew, I guess, anytime I'm not at work. I used to have a life, and then I had kids, and that life went away. They're beautiful. This is a professional photograph that we got done. This is us in our spare time. This is when Tiger King came out. Remember Tiger King? And we dressed up as Tiger King for Halloween. So that's how cool I am. I just realized as well that the next slide is a slide I can't quite show you yet because it's going to give a bunch of answers away. So you're going to see that for a little while now. So enjoy it. I'm 27, so I guess probably one of the kind of bring you guys into, like I said, is what other things are out there in the engineering space and development teams. Before I jump into that, I hope the answer is yes, but hands raised, who's heard of Agile before? Kinda? Does anyone want to take a stab at what Agile is? Not you, someone else. Who wants to take a stab? Otherwise I'm going to pick someone random. Go.
The work management system, right? You scope out what work you're going to do over the next period.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's kind of a mindset and a methodology about how you do work. So I guess in the space of development, what used to happen was that companies would spend months and months and months kind of doing all this investigation analysis into what needed to be done, and you'd have all these people running around writing requirements, writing pages and pages and pages of stuff that needed to get done, and then as engineers, you'd rock up to work one day with a pile of papers this high desk of requirements of things needed to implement. And then the engineers would spend a year and a half coding away, building this stuff, and then they'd just ship it into production. And oftentimes it meant between a product manager having an idea and that idea being released to users, there was like a 12 to 18 month gap. And that's way too long. So Agile was a way to try and speed up the process. So rather than building huge applications with massive requirements set up front and doing all this testing and stuff and then releasing it, you do it in short increments. And we do 3-week increments at Swyftx, and other companies do 2 weeks, some people do 4 weeks, some people do 1 week. But the idea is that you do really short analysis, really short development, really short testing, push it into productions, and then get feedback from your users. So yeah, that's a little bit about that. But I guess the reason I want to tell you about Agile is that with Agile came a bunch of roles that kind of that aren't engineers, but they kind of sit around the engineers to help support the engineers and do other bits and pieces. So here's another question for you all then. If I'm product manager, which is role 1, you've got engineer, role 2, you've met Andrew, application security, role 3. Who wants to take a guess at what? There's a lot, so you're probably not going to be wrong. What other roles could be in a team of people who write code? Scrum Master, heck yes. What does the Scrum Master do?
What did they do?
It's a
Like managing the person.
Yeah, think of them like the process kind of guru. They're the guy who they help remove blockers, they help coach people, they help facilitate workshops. They're kind of like the gap filler running around doing bits and pieces. Yep, Scrum Master's 1, perfect. What else?
QA testers.
QA testers, fantastic. Yep, awesome. What else? DevOps, yep, definitely. Yep. You can either have them in their own team sometimes, or sometimes they're embedded into teams. Yep, fantastic. There's more. Data, yeah, data scientists. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, there's tons. I've got a few more here. So you've got your engineering managers as well. So they're usually like more HR focused type people who managers. You've got technical leads. What we haven't got here, you've got like architects. What else have we got? Who else is in our teams? You've got site reliability engineers who like maintain your infrastructure. Product designers, the people who write will kind of mock up the interfaces, what they're supposed to look like. Front-end engineers, yep, back-end engineers, full stack, whatever you want to call it. There's tons, right? So our squads don't all look like this. Some people don't have security, some people don't have data, some people don't have agile coaches or scrum masters. But what you can usually be sure of is that there's going to be a product manager and there's going to be one or more engineers and probably an engineering manager. And yeah, so I guess a little bit about my journey. I went to, don't judge me for this, QUT. I did thank you, yeah. for the real world. And I ended up here. I didn't turn up too badly, I don't think. So, yeah, I went to UT. I did a dual degree in information technology, i.e. computer science, i.e. whatever you want to call it, and business management. While I was doing that, I was a waiter at a cafe called The Single Guys. It wasn't a meet-up, hook-up cafe. We were all about single origin coffee, hence The Single Guys. But the middle-aged women, they asked every day.
Good coffee, good words.
Thank you, see? Whilst I was doing that, I also built websites on the side at a company that I named myself called IT Help. Wasn't registered, it was all cash, don't tell the ATO. But did that while I was at uni, built a website for my hairdresser, got free haircuts for a year. That was pretty good. I also did an internship at Deloitte as first level IT support guy, kind of like Andrew. Taking in support tickets, helping people out, that kind of stuff. I then landed my first job, and this is a bit of an interesting story. So I applied, so last year at uni, I had actually intended to keep working at Deloitte and applied for a graduate position with them, and they declined me, their loss. And then I was chasing around for graduate opportunities and applied for Suncorp as a graduate developer. And went through that whole kind of recruitment process, did all the online interviews, went to the kind of Suncorp offices, did some workshop and stuff with them, and they gave me the job. And so 6 months later, I finished uni and rocked up on my first day of work for Suncorp, thinking, great, just done my IT degree, going to get into some coding, it's going to be fantastic, actually get some proper experience. And on my first day there, I walked in the door and they were like, oh, yeah, actually, we've got enough developers, and you've got a business degree as well, so you're going to be an analyst. And that was the last time I was on the tools. So I was a bit bummed about that because I didn't really want to be an analyst, but I was like, well, it's a job and they're paying me, and so I'll do what they want me to do. But I actually found over the course of 6 months, I started really enjoying it. To be frank, I was never the best developer. I was the guy in class who was always making sure I was buddying up with someone who was really smart, and then definitely pulling my weight on the code side of things, maybe. But yeah, I kind of dug into this side of things and really enjoyed that. After a year, got promoted to an iteration manager job, which is the same as the Scrum Master, just different words for the same role. And really loved that. So that was all about, yeah, helping teams do great work, working with engineers, making sure that people weren't stuck in what they were doing, coaching people. I then left Suncorp after 2 years and became a contractor. There's good money in it, but it's a lot of work. So I went to RSQ, worked there for a year and a half, burnt my life away working 70, 80-hour weeks for them. But it was good exposure, and that's kind of where I started doing a bunch more stuff with some senior leadership people. So I was running projects like $9 million, $10 million projects, building out compliance software for RSQ, and leading larger and larger teams. Then after that, got sick and tired of not having a life, and so went and joined Swyftx as Scrum Master. And then after 6 months, launched into product. So I guess the general theme you can see there, I've never done anything more like longer than 2 years. And like every single one of those lines is a different title, different position. And none of them involved code, even though that's what I intended to do when I left uni, was write code. So I guess the moral of the story is here that code is awesome, and to be frank, the engineers at Swyftx are like put on a pedestal up here. We were staying in the car on the way. Dave was like, oh, you know, got innovation time, I got all this stuff, and most of the engineers get paid more than I do, and as in I'm saying this to Dave now. But like engineering is like awesome, and so
confused.
Oh, it's the last one anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay.
Um, I'm speaking too long. I'm almost finished. Yeah, engineering is fantastic. Go after that if you want it, but don't feel like you have to. Even if you are an awesome engineer, some of the best product managers are fantastic engineers because they get engineers. You know, some of the best Scrum Masters, some of the best quality analysts, you know, have technical and development background, and they're really good at their jobs because they understand what it means to write code. But the door's open, right? So don't feel like you have to only apply for engineering positions. You can apply for analyst positions. You can apply, I mean, Scrum Masters, iteration managers, product managers are more senior roles. So you probably want to get some experience before you jump into those. But, you know, keep your minds open, because whilst there is a lot of engineering jobs, there is an equal number of other jobs, data scientists, quality analysts, security, whatever. So yeah, keep your horizons open. I mean, like Andrew said, if you want to reach out to us, you find me on LinkedIn. Stalk Jake Swyftx, and you'll probably find me. There's like 3 of us, but you'll be able to find me. And message me, like hit me up if you want. Catch up for coffee. Happy to do that too. Like, I think all of us here are really passionate about finding awesome people who really want to get the most out of their careers, and Swyftx is fantastic for that. So, yeah, keep your horizons open. I'm done. I'm going to stop talking before I keep talking forever. Any questions? Wow. Or any questions for Andrew as well, seeing as he's, yeah.
So you opted to Suncorp.
Mm-hmm.
What did your contract say?
My contract says graduate.
Oh.
Yeah, they get you.
Always read the contract.
Yeah.
And get your parents to read the contract.
I didn't think twice about it. I was like, I'm a graduate. That's what I am. And they could have made me do anything. They could have been washing dishes and stuff. Like, yeah, they'll get you.
Any other questions, guys? Any security questions? Yeah.
I guess this is a much more general question, but particularly for your internship, what are you looking for?
Dan, you come and speak to the camera.
Yeah.
I'll leave.
So
Bye.
I guess it still really aligns, guys, in terms of what we look for when we look for people to join Swyftx. Like, we are massive on the fact that, like, if you don't tick all the boxes, you know, when you see a job ad and you're like, oh, I could do like half of those things, and it is one of those things that normally like a female will look at it and go, oh, I can't do half of those things, I'm not going to apply. And men generally go, I can do half of those things, I am going to apply. So always apply. But at Swyftx, like, you don't need to tick all of those boxes. Like, we can upskill you, we can put you through courses, we can give you further education. So the things that we really look for, like, we hire for potential, we hire for the future. A lot of it is really based off of our values as well. So always look at companies' websites, see what their values are, and that's really like what we are looking for. Like, people who pride themselves on excellence, who are innovative, who are fun, who have really good integrity. So it's very much the same when we do summer internship. They're kind of the real things that we're looking for. And I think, you know, going into these types of roles, we know there's definitely going to be people who might be a bit more introverted or shy. So we're not always expecting everyone to be extroverts and be that person leading the conversation, but it's just about being collaborative and looking at your team members and working together. And I think they're probably like the key things that we look for. Awesome.
I'll give you an example. Application security is pretty hard to find those kind of things that I'm probably looking for. So I just interviewed a junior, 0 application security knowledge, but a lot of QA testing knowledge, and was really good, a good person. So we found him a position, we're creating him a position that fits his skills so he can be hired, and then we're going to train him up in Async. So then he'll flip across.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and if you see something on there, just apply for jobs. You usually put them on there to stop that. Like, you used to put them on there to stop that person from doing it, but right now, that's not what companies are after. They're after people that want and have the drive and the will to do stuff. Skills you can learn.
Yeah, and I was in that interview. I sat in the second round interview for that, and like my feedback was like I wasn't really knowing what to expect, so I kind of jumped in at the last second. And I remember being like, oh, you know, he is a bit more junior than I thought he was going to be, but he asked us really good questions, and that's always my advice to people too. Like, no matter where you interview, have your questions prepared, have them on a notepad. There is no shame in bringing out your notepad and be like, prepared these earlier. They love that. It shows how organized you are. But he just had so much potential, and we could see that. And he was excited about Swyftx. He was excited about our product, and it was one of those ones where I sat there and I said, yeah, like he's not ticking all the boxes just yet, but we want this guy in our business. He's the right fit. So, yeah. Do you guys have any other questions?
So going off that, you said you're trying to double the size of your team. What's just sort of mission or new products and ideas that you want to put Swyftx that you need that manpower for?
So look, I guess a lot of it is very confidential in terms of what we're doing to expand. You guys do ask me to say it's confidential, but like we've got, I guess, two big kind of projects that we're doing. So we are going to expand on our product. What that looks like, we don't know exactly, but in terms of our vision, it's about having like our 5-year vision is becoming an all-encompassing financial ecosystem so that our customers can come and trade their crypto, but they might be able to do all sorts of other things that have to do with finance on the Swyftx app. And we are also expanding further globally. So we've launched, I think, September last year in New Zealand, and the game plan is really to aggressively launch all overseas as well. So you need a lot of devs, a lot of marketing, and a lot of all of these other roles that Jake was especially talking to you about as well in order to do that and kind of keep growing at the pace that we are. So if you think we really grew about 230 people in 1 year and we want to keep going, like we have some pretty big goals. So yeah, keep an eye out. Any other questions, guys? Yeah.
I'll say, your security, can I talk to you after?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, guys, we'll be around for a bit. So like, I know sometimes like you don't always want to put your hand up and ask. So we'll be here. Feel free to come have a chat. And like the guy said, you can reach out to them online. If you ever want to get our details as well, just talk to like the UQCS kind of leaders, and we can always connect and get that too. Cool.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for that, guys. Round of applause for everyone. Thanks for coming out. Pretty much we'll be like heading upstairs and like everyone will just come out. So we've had a lot of people at the shop as well who wanted to have classes until 6.
Okay.
They come for the pizza and they come to talk to you guys as well. But thanks for giving us like a broad spectrum like overview of Swyftx, also just some general advice for software devs. We don't actually get that much from speakers who come here, which is like some heartfelt advice. Just for general software development is really good as well, especially immortalized for people to come back. First years lap this stuff up because they're like nervous coming up and talking, and they don't want to ask these questions. And then just having that answer for them is really nice. But yeah, so thanks for that.
No, yeah, thank you so much, guys. And yeah, like I said, we'll be around. We've also got Dave over there who started as a junior engineer and now he's mid-level. So if you've got more engineering questions, Brian and Dave, and yeah, we'll all be here.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for having us. Guys, we've got bags as well, so please feel free to come and take one. It's just got some goodies and bits and pieces in it.
Let everyone else know that.
Brilliant.
Like, maybe give
Oh, yeah.
give one, and mum just symbolically, and we'll give the other ones later.
Yeah. Get some fancy ass models.
Thank you, guys.
Just for the white and coffee will probably stain like immediately on the inside.
That's okay.
It's pretty
I can't see color. You can never have enough. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
can confirm.
Yeah, James.
Test
We've been testing it.
Yeah.
Using it.
How do they? Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I drink tea, so
I was going to say, I don't drink coffee, but
yeah.
Yes.